What does talking about race relations have to do with health and wellness? Find out today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live and enjoy the show. We do go live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So be there, be square, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page, and we got people like Melissa and Amy, Nancy, who said, I was worried about you. Glad to see your smiling face. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm a little bit late today, but it's a busy day. I had an interview before this, and I'm working on a podcast. I'm always working. So sorry I was late, but I don't like to do that, but we're here. Thank you for being here, Facebook. We're also simulcasting over here on my YouTube channel, YouTube Live. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live here on Instagram, you can watch it on replay over at IGTV. As soon as this is over, I put it right up onto IGTV. It's a great feature they started a couple of weeks ago where they put the full length, the full hour up over on IGTV. So you can see all the past episodes kind of there since they've been doing that. We have all the past episodes over on YouTube. Type in the keyword Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show. We also put them in archive form over on JimmyRants.com, which is the official website for this show. And as always, if you get value out of what I do here, then definitely throw some value back at me. Click on that Patreon page, and really any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. Today I want to take on a topic that has come up quite a bit since I've been talking about some of the social injustice and the race relations stuff in my work. And let me be very clear about this. I am highly unqualified to talk about this subject because I'm whiter than white and certainly do not understand all the intricacies of what it means to be a black person in America. And so I don't pretend like I am some kind of an expert on that. What I do though, is I try to underscore focusing on the human beings involved. And I think when you look at the humans and you take away the political aspect, you take away, all the things that you see in the media about this, and you focus in on what the topic at hand is, it's people. And where there's people and there's people involved, there's humanity involved, really at the end of the day, we're not talking about a color issue, we're talking about a people issue. And so I've been talking quite a bit about the people involved in this issue. And some people have brought up a question, well, Jimmy, what does this have to do with health? You talk about keto and low carb and health and healthy living and cholesterol and fat. What in the world does this topic of race relations have to do with the subject of health? And I think you'd be surprised how intricately entwined the two are. And yesterday on the Living La Vida Low Carb show, I had this lady named Shelby Gordon who was telling me a little bit of the history. She's a black woman, telling me a little bit of the history about how fat shaming actually started out as something that was shaming of black women for their weight being big, and that they were seen as less than human, seen as disgusting, and all this stuff. And so fat shaming actually started as a racist act towards black women. And so I was like, whoa, I wonder how many people realize that's where all the fat shaming comes from. It's not just that fatness was deemed unhealthy, and it was actually that they identified that people who had extra weight on their body was deemed unhealthy, was deemed all these things, first because they saw it in black women primarily. And so that was pretty eye-opening. If you haven't listened to the Living La Vida Low Carb show interview I did yesterday, again, her name's Shelby Gordon. I have the video up over on YouTube if you want to watch it there, but I also had it on my podcast, so llvlc.com if you want to listen. But these talks about race relations has everything to do with health. And I read a really great article. This was actually in Shape magazine. And the headline says, why wellness pros need to be part of the conversation about racism. And so they kind of go into, hey, if you are a leader in the health and wellness world, you need to be speaking up. You need to be helping people see the connection between what you've been talking about and this. Now, again, let me be very clear. I'm not interested in the political aspect of it. I'm not even interested in like the cultural discussions about cops and who got shot and statistics. All of that's very interesting on a whole nother level. On the topic at hand, we need to see that there are disparities that come in the wellness and health world because of race. I just interviewed a really amazing woman this morning. Her name is Black Carnivore over on Instagram. She does YouTube videos as well under Black Carnivore. And her whole statement that she was saying about connecting these two had everything to do with taking away the economic issues involved. Okay, maybe access to care, it makes it a little more challenging. She said, you take away the economic issues, and there's still 3 times more Black people getting amputations for diabetes complications than white people. And it makes you ask the question, why? It makes you wonder, okay, what is the connecting factor that makes that a truism? And again, there's a lot of things at play here. I asked her, what about kind of genetic and cultural predispositions of the Black community? And we don't know is the answer. But the reality is 3 times as many Black people are getting amputations as white people when they have diabetes. And we should be asking the question, why? And her theory is that Black people are not getting the same preventative type of treatment that white people are. And so is that kind of what we're talking about here today? And I want you to start thinking about this. I know the knee-jerk reaction is, well, that's absurd. Like, why would they treat Black people any less than they do white people? But we have to entertain that possibility. We have to realize that this is at least a perception in the Black community that there is a disparity when it comes to health and wellness as well. So I'm going to read from this, and if you joined us late, I'm about to read from an article that was published in Shape magazine, Why Wellness Pros Need to Be Part of the Conversation About Racism. And it's calling out people like myself, which I've been speaking out for the last 5 weeks. I've been speaking out very heavily on this. I've taken a pretty bad toll on a lot of levels for doing that. But I feel like this is important, and I feel like other people, especially white people in this space that are wellness leaders, need to be taking the baton and running with this. And I get it. It's fearful. You're afraid you're going to turn off a certain segment of your crowd. And it is what it is. But I think if we're really serious about wanting to help people change their health, then we need to get serious about seeing these disparities that are going on in the health and wellness world. So let me read from this. Due to the recent deaths of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and Ahmaud Arbery, discussions of racism in America have been flooding the media and social news feeds. While most would agree that racism is a serious problem, how many of us have considered the impact of racism on health? What's more, have you considered the importance of the wellness industry's responsibility to be a part of the conversation on racism? And I would think that we don't always know what those conversations are supposed to be, and especially people in the white community. I think we dance around the issue because we just simply don't know what to say. And I speak from personal experience. Obviously I don't feel like I have racism in my heart, and I believe that with all my heart. I don't feel like I've been racist in any way in the work that I've done, but maybe indirectly by not being more inclusive of understanding and wanting to understand the Black community, that's a form of racism. I mean, I suppose you could kind of look at this from a lot of angles. I'm trying to learn now, and I think a lot of us in this space are definitely trying to be more inclusive, trying to be more understanding, and seeing all the angles from every view. In his 2016 TED Talk, David R. Williams, he's a PhD and an MPH, professor of public health at the Harvard School of Public Health, stated, America has recently awakened to a steady drumbeat of unarmed Black men being shot by the police. What is even a bigger story is that every 7 minutes a Black person dies prematurely in the United States. That means over 200 Black people die every single day who would not die if the health of blacks and whites are equal. Did you get that? Like, they want to talk about black people being shot by white police, and I get it. That's kind of a narrative that the media likes to, put out there, and it keeps being exacerbated by the reality that there are a lot of black people that get killed by white cops. And I get it. I'm not getting into the whole political aspect of this. I don't care. That's not the point of this. The point of this is, did you see that every 7 minutes a black person dies prematurely of a chronic disease? So we're having 200 black people die every single day because of their health. And it makes you wonder why. Like, what is it unique about someone that has black skin that's making them die? Is it because they have some genes or something that makes their body deteriorate at a faster rate than a white person? Like, are we really gonna think that way? And if it's not that, then what is it? Let's think this through a little bit. Now, obviously, socioeconomic factors are at play here that could play a role. But like I said, Black Carnivore, who I just interviewed, 8A Fox, was saying, look, when you take away all the economic factors and you see equal paid black people to white people, it's no comparison. They're still seeing much worse health outcomes. And is there something going on there where their race is preventing them from getting the best health care that they can, to the degree that every 7 minutes a black person's dying prematurely of a chronic disease? If you've never thought about this before, I think now is the time, more than ever before, that we start thinking about these disparities and trying to figure out why it's happening. What could be the causal factors? I think that's our role in the white community, is to try to help be an agent for change and improvement and seeing what exactly is going on there. In this TED Talk that David Williams gave, he goes on to discuss a myriad of health implications caused by experiencing discrimination and racism, including increased stress hormones. This is something I've talked about a lot. My theory about why black people are having more diabetes and heart disease and obesity is the stress that they feel because of either the reality of or the perception of racism because of the color of their skin. And again, I phrase it as such that the reality of or perception of, whether we as white people want to admit it or not, there is this perception that they are greatly under attack simply because of the color of their skin. And they always have to be on guard. All of that unguardedness is increasing stress hormones. Cortisol is going up, adrenaline is going up, and that has a negative physical effect on the body. So that's a big factor. High blood pressure, same thing. When you have higher stress, you have higher cortisol levels. Your blood pressure is going to be higher. Increased instances of heart disease and breast cancer, again, all related to metabolic health that can be related to stress, and even premature mortality, dying early. In addition, it's black women who are 2 to 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women, which again, you have to ask why. Is it because they don't get good prenatal care, or if they get the same care, but they have different outcomes? What is going on? COVID-19 deaths among black Americans are substantially higher, 92.3 deaths per every 100,000, compared to white Americans, only 45.2 deaths per 100,000. That's more than double, according to the Centers for Disease Control. And while there are many things that factor into all these statistics, implicit bias, often a result of unconscious racism, plays a role in the medical treatment that they receive. So again, I'm reading from Shape Magazine. I know some of this is going to be a little bit hard for people to hear because some people don't feel like there's racism, and that's a whole nother discussion for another day. What I'm showing here today by reading this article and giving my commentary is we need to see that there is this connection between racism, between talking about race relations and health and wellness, because we're seeing it in the statistics. Otherwise, how do you explain some of those statistics that I just shared? What is the X factor in all those? What could explain them? And I definitely welcome your commentary. I see a lot of you are being real quiet right now, so please feel free to talk. We need to have these kind of open discussions to come up with answers and to be a part of the solution. Because quite frankly, these statistics are not going to go away on their own. Tina Moore, a nutritional doctor, a naturopathic doctor, says implicit bias is unconscious and it's impacting how doctors treat their black patients. She's based out of Portland, Oregon. When people are in denial about their own privilege and the ideals that they hold about a certain group of people, it can bleed over into the way they provide care. She's calling out her medical professional friends. Are you giving the same treatment and the same education to the black person that you are the white person? Each individual doctor is going to have to answer for that. They're going to have to basically say, yeah, I see them and treat them all the same. And of course, people will say that. They'll give lip service to that. But do you? And again, this isn't pointing fingers at anybody. There's a lot of white people that have a knee-jerk reaction. I don't know why you're pointing fingers at me. I haven't done anything wrong. Lay that aside for a second. That's not a part of this discussion. This discussion is acknowledging that there's definitely a disparity when it comes to the health of black people compared to the health of white people. And if we don't recognize that there's at least a disparity there, and if you missed it earlier, 3 times as many amputations for type 2 diabetic black people as there is for type 2 diabetic white people. And this accounts for all the economic factors involved as well, because that's what people will jump on. Well, there's less access to care because of less money and da-da-da. I also brought up with Black Carnivore in our interview that, okay, maybe they hold off on going to see the doctor because of the stigma, because of obesity. And again, that's another part of the discussion, that you hold off on dealing with health issues until it gets to a really severe degree where amputation is the only thing that's left. So a lot of kind of moving parts to this, but we have to get our wheels turning on this about why there seems to be such a disparity in the health between black people and white people. Racial bias in pain perception is also associated with racial bias in pain treatment recommendations. We aren't empowering people to have autonomy over their bodies because of this bias. So again, they're calling out, this is a naturopath in Portland, Oregon, Tina Moore, calling out her medical colleagues. Okay, are you viewing pain in a black person the same way that you view pain in a white person? And again, each individual doctor and medical professional is going to have to answer that in their own heart. This is not an indictment on any one person. This is not an indictment on the collective. This is just, hey, we need to take stock in. There's definitely disparities. So why? Why is that happening? Implicit bias refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. When left unchecked and unexamined, it affects the way individuals engage with people, even if they have the best of intentions. And this is one thing I've seen again and again in some of the comments that have been made on the posts I haven't put up, is white people are like, well, I don't have racism. I never have any ill will in my heart towards any black people. And it's just, it's almost like this, you have to apologize for the perception that somehow, some way racism is out there. Now I get it. There's some people that deny that there's any kind of systemic racism, and I get it. That's the conversation we can definitely have. But in the realm of health, I don't think it's any question that there is definitely disparity there, and we need to try to figure out why. When it comes to health and wellness, it's important to remember that mental, emotional, and spiritual health are all as equally important to a person's well-being. And this is a problem too. From a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, do you feel like it is on equal ground, white people and black people? And if you do, great. That's your worldview. That's what you feel. I would say seek out black people in your life. And if you don't have black friends, try to make some black friends. I grew up in rural West Tennessee. And I can promise you, I had a lot of black friends, and I grew up a child of the 80s. And I can tell you, I could see very clear examples of racism. I mean, it just, and of course, again, that was a different time than right now, but still, it is a part of the culture and was a part of my childhood culture that I observed the N-word being said by people. It was. Or when you're talking about black people, you whispered. That was normal. Always bothered me though. I'm like, okay, why you gotta like be secret? If you're gonna be a racist, be loud and proud about your racism. Otherwise, put a sheet over your head because you're not hiding it. Like, it always ticked me off to no end to see this happening, and then they act like they're good, upstanding members of society, and not really. All of these aspects of wellness have a direct impact on your physical health. We seem to forget that as the mind goes, as the body's reaction to stress goes, so goes your body and physically how it responds. And blood sugar increases and blood pressure increases, blood insulin increases, inflammation increases. I could talk about all the cascade of negative health effects that come, physical health effects that come when your body is under a state of stress. And if we don't recognize that maybe that's the missing piece here, I don't know what we do to move forward. You can't adequately take on a holistic approach to wellness without addressing racism and how it affects the well-being and prevents some people from feeling safe in their bodies. Like when I first started hearing about the parents of black children that would have to explain to them, hey, when you get pulled over by a cop, have your wallet on the dashboard. Just keep it on the dashboard all the time because you don't want to be seen grabbing for your license and registration, and then they think you're going for a gun, you get shot. I'm like, what? Like, my dad never had to explain anything like that to me. And I never had any fear of being pulled over. I hated it when I got pulled over for speeding, for example. But I didn't feel like I was going to die because that cop pulled me over. Ever. And yet there is this perception in the black community that if they get pulled over, they might die. In fact, I was watching a video just the other day of a black cop, who got pulled over, and he knew all the protocols of what to do because he had pulled people over himself. And it was this white cop in another jurisdiction, and he had a gun on him, the black cop did, when he got pulled over, and he said, sir, I am a fellow police officer. I have a gun in my holster on my right hip. I just wanted to let you know. And so he was being overly like explanatory. And the white cop's like, okay, well, just pull it out of the holster. He was like, if I grab for my gun, you will shoot me. Like, that was a real fear of his. And so all of the stress hormones that come from situations like that, we can't deny that has to have some kind of a physical effect on his body. And this is what we're talking about in this article. Again, whatever you think of what's being said here in this article, that's not relevant. I think what we're talking about here is we need to have this conversation that race relations and health and wellness are intricately entwined, a lot more than you realize. And again, whether this is a reality that black people should be fearful if they're pulled over, just as an example, or if it's just that perception. Guys, the perception becomes reality because that still impacts their stress hormones and gives them a little more anxiety than not. It's clear that racism is a public health issue. As such, it's imperative that wellness practitioners join in on this conversation about racism, both in America and around the world. One of the most common rationales I hear from members of the wellness community about why they have yet to join the conversation about this intersection of racism and wellness is that they just don't know what to say, or they're worried about getting it wrong. Yeah, welcome to the world of getting it wrong, worried about getting it wrong. I have been talking very openly the last 5 weeks about this, and when I first started talking about it, I said it all wrong, and I messed up badly. And people let me know right away how badly I messed it up. Then I started getting educated, and I had fellow white people actually help to educate me, and I started learning a little more. I've now been interviewing quite a few people of color in the wellness space, for example, who have helped to educate me even more. And I think that's what we can do, you guys. Learn from these other people that maybe we've never connected with before. And it wasn't like anything overtly racist by not connecting with them before now. But now more than ever before, I think we recognize, okay, when you know better, you do better. And we know better. And we're now starting to learn some of these things and the challenges that face the Black community. And we can't put our head in the ground. We can't worry about not knowing what to say. Can't worry about getting it wrong and being called a racist. Guys, I had been called every name in the book since I started writing this, writing about this stuff and talking about it on Jimmy Rants and all the things. I've had quite a bit of stuff put out there. But it's an important part of the dialogue, and it's an important part if we're going to move forward in having these conversations about why Black people tend to have more health and wellness issues. And it's statistical fact. We got to dig deeper to find out why. And now we're starting to come up with some clues. While I completely understand the sentiment, the reality of the situation is that unless your goal as a wellness practitioner is to only help your clients with a fragmented aspect of their wellness, you can't ignore the impact of racism on people's health. Staying out of the conversation does not change anything. In order to combat the health disparities of racism, the wellness industry needs to be a part of the solution. And this is one reason, guys, that I have spoken up. This is one reason that as one of the leaders in the low-carb, keto, carnivore type of space, I've tried to use my voice, my platform, to be an agent of good. And do I always get it right? No. Am I a part of the conversation and bringing together messages to people that maybe they would not have been exposed to but for? Absolutely. And are those people now being influenced and understanding this and maybe starting to share it in their sphere of influence? Yes. And that's what it's all about. I see so many people still posting their latest recipe for this and, oh, well, we need to worry about the health marker, this health marker, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, okay, are you just going to pretend like the race stuff just isn't going on right now? Are we just going to act like it's no big deal? Or are we actually going to be a part of this and being a part of the solution to this? And I don't know about you guys. I want to be a part of the former, not the latter. Because the former is where real change is going to happen. Can you imagine, like, we've lived our whole lives thinking this is something we can sweep under the rug, sweep under the rug, sweep under the rug, and now all of a sudden we are at the very edge of real change happening. And I get it. There's a lot of forces at play that are trying to push agendas, and I'm not interested in any of that crap. I've spoken out very clearly. I am not for the leftist agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement. I think they are a very dangerous aspect of this whole thing, and I'm not in favor of that whatsoever. But what I am in favor of is caring about Black Lives Mattering and being a part of the solution. And part of caring about Black Lives Mattering is realizing they have specific health issues that are unique to their race. And we need to figure out why. And that's what we're trying to do. So they give in this Shape magazine 5 steps that you can, as a wellness professional, do to be better equipped to engage in the conversation about this intersection of racism and wellness. Number 1 is educate yourself. And that's what I've been pouring myself into these past 5 weeks. Not only educating, but as I get educated, then sharing and educating myself. And sharing out to my followers and the people that follow Jimmy Moore and Jimmy Rants and all of the work that I'm doing. Because if you're listening and you're getting this message, then maybe it becomes a little more clear to you and understandable to you. And quite frankly, a lot of white people are like, well, I wish Black people would just teach me. Can I tell you, I have talked to plenty of Black people. They're exhausted. They're frustrated. They feel like they've said these things, even though we haven't heard them. They feel like they've said these things over and over and over so many times that it's not been heard, that they're like, I'm out. White people, you deal with it. And you figure out how to stop being racist. That's what's going on in their head. So if it means the whiter than white Jimmy Moore needs to be out here talking about it, then that's what I'm doing. And that's why I do these like this here today. So educate yourself is the first thing you can do. Perhaps a lot of the information I'm sharing is new to you, or maybe you're just beginning to broaden your understanding of racism and how it affects your life. Even in the wellness industry, if you haven't been having these conversations or even considered this before, this can all be a bit overwhelming. But the wonderful thing is there are so many ways you can educate yourself. So there's all kind of books out there. They note one here, Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. I've talked about White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, who was a white woman talking to white people about this issue. Layla says we need to create the change that the world needs by creating change within yourself. And if we individually start to change, then we become empowered to then want to help other people change. And that's how we change. As a wellness practitioner, to truly understand the implication of racism in health, you need to examine the ways in which you're engaging in racism or being complicit with the system. So getting that book, Me and White Supremacy or White Fragility. There's another one here, So You Want to Talk About Race. And then the last one is How to Be Anti-Racist. So those are all ways you can educate yourself about this issue. Number 2, lean into the discomfort. Can I tell you, it's not been comfortable for Jimmy Moore to talk about this. And I'll be frank with you. I have lost about 800 followers on Instagram since I started talking about this. And I'm okay with that, by the way. It is what it is. And I can't control that. All I can control is when I get passionate about a subject and wanting to share, even if it's not necessarily something people want to hear, but it's a passion in my heart, I'm going to share. And there's discomfort in that. And there's a lot of people that are influencers in the wellness space. They don't want to be disruptive. They're fearful of losing people. Trust me, that fear is real, especially in the white wellness community. And I'm going to encourage all my white wellness fellow colleagues to let go of that. Let go of your comfort. Start embracing the discomfort. Because it's in embracing the discomfort that you finally see that there's a whole nother side of this story that has not been amplified and articulated and had a light shone on it. And when you start to see this other side, you go, oh my gosh, where have I been? Discussing racism in general may make you feel uncomfortable. However, it's important to remember that any new practice will always involve discomfort. Trust me, when I started the Atkins diet and I went from about 1,600 grams of carbs to 20, there was a little discomfort. It was bad. Strength training is another thing. When you first start, you get the delayed onset muscle soreness. Beginning meditation, your mind wanders when you first start doing that. If you train for a 5K, discomfort is where the growth is. It is where the medicine is. It's where the liberation is. Life coach Shirin Eskandani, sorry I slaughtered that person's name, wrote about this topic. If you can understand why the discomfort of a yoga pose is beneficial to your healing and growth, then you can also understand the discomfort of anti-racism work is exactly the same. Discomfort is where you grow. And discomfort is a necessary part of the process, and experiencing discomfort, which results from talking about race and racism, is substantially easier than experiencing racism. And that's something I've had to remind myself. As much discomfort as I have had as a white health influencer these past 5 weeks talking about this, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like having to live in black skin in America. And I know, again, there's going to be people who be like, oh, they have the same opportunities. What are you talking about? There's no racism. There's no discrimination. I wish you would stop talking about that. There's going to be those people always. But if you stop and really think about it, would you trade positions with a black person in America right now? And most white people, no way, Jose, would they ever do that. Why? And if you believe that, ask yourself, why wouldn't you? If you feel like there's equal opportunity, why would you not? And I think you know why. Number 3, recognize the privilege of staying out of the conversation. I got to tell you, this week I was very tempted to stop talking about this altogether. In fact, I was talking with some close confidants and I'm like, I think I'm done talking about the race relations because it feels like nobody really wants to have a solution. Nobody really wants to come to some understanding and really resolve this issue. So what's the use? And all it's doing is causing discomfort and pain and losing followers and blah, blah, blah. And I stopped and realized, oh my gosh, I have that privilege. I can bow out at any moment. Nobody's making me be in this discussion, and I could back out of this discussion and live my happy life and talk about nutritional ketosis and all the things, and nobody would bat an eye. That's the easy way out. And unfortunately, Black people don't have that out. They experience discrimination and racism on a daily basis, or at least the perception of it. They don't have the opportunity to opt out. If you can choose not to discuss racism and other forms of oppression and it doesn't affect your life, you have privilege. You have the ability to ignore and remain silent on important issues because there is no direct negative effect on you at all. Staying out of the conversation about racism is actually a form of complicity. Choosing to remain silent on issues of racism will uphold the system already in place, and it is an example of privilege in action. I have told people this. If you don't speak out on this, you're basically saying that you're okay with the way things are. You're okay that there's a segment of the population who feels like they are oppressed and unheard. And as a human being who cares about other human beings, I want to find out why do they feel that way. And if it's a real thing, then help me understand what it is that's going on and how we can be a part of the solution. If it's only a perception of a thing, then let's help to show that it's not the reality that they think it is. Either way, we can't turn a blind eye to this. Either way, we need to be a part of the solution. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Even if no one tells you about the impact of your silence, they're feeling it. And again, I know this whole issue of white people being silent has been controversial. Some white people have pushed back and go, I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Maybe I don't have any opinion on it at all, which is part of the problem. There's a lot of moving parts to this. But just know when you don't say anything, you're basically saying a lot that, okay, you must not care that we have these issues going on. So start with things like calling other people out for unconscious racist behavior and microaggressions, pushing for adequate representation in your clients and staff, speaking up about issues like this, whether you usually make your voice heard on social media or within your immediate professional circles. So they're just saying, speak up a little more. And again, I know a lot of people in the health and wellness space that aren't touching this subject with a 10-foot pole. They're not. They don't want to talk about this. They don't even want to come anywhere near it. To which I can understand that as a white person and as a person who has gotten an increased amount of stress. I will tell you, talking about this has definitely impacted my health and my stress levels, my sleep. I'm usually a pretty good sleeper, and I track it with the Oura Ring. And the last week alone, I have had struggles trying to get it back on track again. It's okay, it's good, but it's usually outstanding and excellent, and it hasn't been lately. And people are like, well, if it's affecting your sleep that much, why don't you stop talking about this and try to chill and get back in line? I'm like, yeah, again, I have that privilege to be able to do that. And I have a heart for people, and I'm going to continue to have a heart for people. I don't care what the color of your skin is. Number 4, seek to diversify your social and professional circles. And I'm doing this actively now. I was called out today by Ada Fox. Ada Fox, that's her name, Edefox. She's Black Carnivore here on Instagram. And she said, you know, white people need to kind of seek us out. We're here. We're not hiding. We're out here. So you need to seek us out. And so I'm looking to diversify the people in my sphere of influence. I don't currently have an opening in my own business, but the next opening I have, I'm probably going to hire a person of color. Obviously looking at qualifications and all that, not just getting a token person of color. There's nothing worse than being a token employee and not one that has qualifications. But I'm going to seek out highly qualified people and try to hire within that a person of color. If the majority of the people in your social and professional circles look just like you, diversify your life a bit. Without the power of a diverse circle, you can fall into the trap of groupthink, wherein everyone you know holds similar beliefs. In addition, you can fail to see the harmful effects of racism if everyone in your circle doesn't have that lived experience of dealing with it. So while you seek to widen your circle, I urge you to be mindful of tokenism, which is what I was just talking about. Instead, seek to develop genuine relationships, not as an attempt to just check off the diversity box. Most importantly, don't enter these new relationships with any expectations for anyone to try to explain racism or share their experience with you. Enter into it because you have a genuine interest in making the connection. And this is something that I've tried to resist the urge of when I'm speaking, especially on my podcast lately, when I'm speaking with Black people. Well, tell me your story. Tell me how you feel. And it's almost like I wouldn't do that with a white person. Tell me what it's like to have lived a life as a white person. It would sound weird, right? And no, you get to talk about the shared interest. You talk about the things that you have in common. That's what you talk about. In the words of writer and civil rights activist Audre Lorde, it is not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate the differences. Engage with individuals different from yourself with a genuine appreciation and celebration without expecting anything other than human connection in return. Even if you live in a homogeneous area of the country, social media allows for connection and engagement with all types of people all over the world. And social media definitely does that as well. Finally, number 6, be willing to mess up. And trust me, I have done plenty of messing up in talking about this. But what have I done? I've continued to talk about it. I've continued to do videos, to write posts, and engaging in the conversation. Because the worst thing you can do is disengage from the conversation altogether. The important part is how you respond when you mess up. That's the part that people will always remember. When you mess up, the best thing you can do is acknowledge what you did, take responsibility, apologize without centering yourself, rectify the situation, and then learn from it. And the best way to avoid centering yourself in an apology is to simply accept responsibility for the actions while acknowledging you understand the impact of the actions. It also involves steering away from sentiments about how bad you feel, alluding to the fact that you made a mistake, or explaining you had the best of intentions. The impact of your actions matter more than the intentions. More importantly, don't let the mess up be the reason you stop having difficult conversations. And like I said, this week, I almost did that very thing because it got to the point where I was getting such negative feedback that I was like, okay, it's not worth it anymore. And then I realized I have that privilege of backing out, but people of color do not. By the way, this Shape magazine article was written by Chrissy King. She's from this creator of the hashtag Body Liberation Project. She's obviously an advocate for anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion in the wellness industry. So she created a course, by the way, called Anti-Racism for Wellness Professionals, again, on shape.com, the Shape magazine. They have all of the information about that if you want to check it out. But guys, it's intricately involved. Race relations, talking about this, is not a totally different subject than the health and wellness industry. And so all of you who have called me out and other people out for talking about this, oh, what's this have to do with keto? What's this have to do with health? It has everything to do with health. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Going to come over here to Instagram first, then to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. Let's see what you guys have to say. JimmyRants.com is the website, as always. And Leslie says, I recommend The Third Hope by Miles McPherson and Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. Thanks for sharing this. It's not been discussed or reflected upon enough. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. She says this is a critical time in our country's history and we can all learn from each other. That's the thing, Leslie. It feels like that there's people that are missing this opportunity. Like, this is a golden opportunity in our history. I don't think any white person wants to continue to see black people feeling like they're oppressed and unheard. And I think we're giving them more of a voice to be able to express what's going on, but we need to be able to listen and learn from what they have to say and not just have a knee-jerk reaction of, well, I'm not racist, so therefore this is not an issue. Can we move on? Because the worst thing we can do is say, oh, okay, you had your moment. Okay, we're going to move on in life because this is not relevant to me. That's the worst thing that could possibly happen from all this, which is why I continue to talk about it, because I want people to not think that this is just going to go away on its own. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's see what my followers over here on Facebook have to say. What's up, Facebook? Let's see. Tammy says, thank you for taking on the current issues from COVID-19 to racial tensions. I know social media platforms will demonetize when certain topics are discussed. I've been disappointed with some keto influencers who won't mention due to losing funds. Yeah, I have been shadow banned on Facebook. I have been shadow banned on Instagram. I have had a lot of people that say, when you go live, I don't get notifications anymore. I know over on YouTube, when people have been subscribed, they changed the classification of my channel over to kids. And so a kid's video can't get notifications. And so when I go live, they don't always send out the notification that I've gone live. And so people have had to unsubscribe and resubscribe, and then it fixes it. But yeah, trust me, I have paid a toll for speaking out like I have on a variety of issues. And that's of no concern to me. I'm going to keep doing my work. Nancy wants to know what shadow band is. So shadow band is, I keep doing my work, Nancy, but then if you subscribe to my channel, if you are someone who follows me, you won't always see all of my posts. And so I sometimes will get people that say, they'll write to me in an email and that, wow, you haven't written anything on Facebook or Instagram in 2 weeks, or over here on YouTube, I haven't seen a new video in 2 weeks. I'm like, I put up videos every day. I post on social media every day. And then, oh my gosh, I'm like, go directly to my page and you'll see all my stuff. But you don't get it in your news feed. You don't see it. That's what shadow banning is. So hope that helps. All right. Thank you, Facebook. Let me pop over here to my YouTube channel. All right. How's it going? I'm new to your channel. Well, welcome. Thanks for being here. Hello, Linda. Thanks for being here. All right, let's see here. Edith says it's easy to speculate from the outside. Neither of the men. Oh, she's talking about something else somebody else said here. Here it is. Maximus ketones. The health of black folks is different, and I found that they thrive on keto and carnivore. And that's true. Unfortunately, that message is having a hard time getting out there. And there's some racist people on here, so we're going to skip right past all you racist people. So, wow, you talk about a subject like racism and race relations and its impact on health and wellness, and there it is on full display. I'm not giving you credence on my show, sorry, but wow. Wow. People never cease to amaze me. That when they say they're not something and then they display they're exactly that something, it's hard to ignore. Hard to ignore. All right, guys. So the next time somebody says, well, what's all this race relations have to do with health and wellness? I hope today's Jimmy Rants kind of gave you a little more perspective about it, that it's intricately entwined, a lot more so than you realize. So if you're a white person who's in the health space and you haven't been sharing about this, can I please implore you to speak up? Use your voice. Put it out there that you hear, you care, you want to be a part of the solution, and yeah, you're going to mess up. Trust me, I've messed up. But when you mess up, it's no big deal. You messed up. You move on, you learn, and that's what we're all doing. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me right here. Instagram, I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live. We also go live over on Facebook, same time with simulcast. Thank you for being here. As well as over on YouTube, same thing. We go at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, right here on Jimmy Rants. If you miss the live here on Instagram, you can watch it on replay over at IGTV. We also put the replay over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then finally, go to JimmyRants.com. It's the official website for this show. You can see all the past episodes there. And if you get value out of what we do here, I try to do a really good show with a wide variety of topics for you to enjoy and learn from. Click on that Patreon page. And if I give you value, then give value back to me. And any donation that you provide would be greatly appreciated. And that's it for now. Let me get out of here for now. We'll see you again real soon. Bye. All right.